to the UIAAA Connection podcast. GoFan and VNN are proud to be the exclusive sponsor of the UIAAA Connection. Now a combined company, GoFan and VNN provide a seamless integration for digital ticketing and athletic websites. Direct your fans to one place for all your athletic events, communications, and tickets to home and away games. Thank you to GoFan and VNN for their exclusive sponsorship of the UIAAA Connection.
Welcome back to another edition of the UIAAA Connection. I'm your host, Mark Hutchhunter. Today we have as our special guest, Kim Monkres, the principal at Crimson Cliffs High School in St. George, Utah. Kim, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat with you.
Let's have you begin by sharing with our audience here across the nation and around the world where you grew up, where you went to high school, college, your first job, etc.
Oh boy, across the nation and around the world, this might be your most low-rated episode.
It won't be.
I'm pretty boring. I grew up in Roy, Utah, and I went to Roy High School. And in high school, well, my whole life I danced and was a dancer. In high school, I was a member of the drill team. And that was really kind of the precipice, if you will, for the rest of my life, set me up for what I wanted to do. I knew for sure in high school, I had a wonderful English teacher, Miss Eleanor Olson, who inspired me to be an English teacher. And I just think that's super fortunate for me at such a young age to know what I wanted to do and where my passion was. And that was just being able to be in front of students and help them learn and grow. And so I knew right away that's what I wanted to do. The coaching thing came a little bit later. And I went to Weber State University, got my degree in English teaching and communications. Then I started my teaching career at Washington High School, an alternative high school, and it was at that time shared with Ogden School District and Weber County School District. And I was there for a year, and then I got a coaching opportunity at Bonneville High School. And it was one of those jobs that was literally a dream job in a dream place. I absolutely loved Bonneville, and just being a part of the Laker family was one of the greatest blessings ever. My husband and I got an opportunity to move to St. George in 2008. And that was the same time I finished my master's program for administration. So we moved to St. George in 2008. And we've been here ever since, kind of.
All right. Well, so you spent all of your younger days in dance that you knew what you wanted to do. Let's have you mention a few other mentors. You mentioned this Eleanor Olson, one of your English teachers when you were younger. Mention some of the other mentors you've had in your life that have made a difference.
So I had a high school coach, and this name might sound familiar, Susie Jensen. She now works in Davis County, and just a phenomenal human, wonderful mentor and role model. And I loved being coached by her, but also her sister, Jan Hoke, who was a coach of a rival team, if you will, while I was in high school at Weber High, but always just so loving and caring towards me. And it was through Jan that I got the opportunity to coach at Bonneville High School, where she was an assistant principal. Jan, her husband, Dave, their girls are just kind of part of our family. We just love the Hokes so much. And they've just been great role models of coaches, teachers, mentors, and just appreciate that family. I also had the wonderful, extremely wonderful opportunity to be taught by their mother, Jan and Susie's mother, at Weber State University. And wow, just a great family and just great humans to have in our lives.
So Dave Hoke, that's Dave, the former AD at Northridge,
Yes.
among other schools. Okay,
Yep.
Small world. There you go. Well, that is great. Thanks for sharing that with us. Let's have you talk for a minute. Personal question for you, Kim. What's your biggest failure or disappointment in life, and what did you learn from it?
This is a really hard question because I I think I fail at something every day. And so I've been trying to think of one like colossal failure, and I really can't think of one. And that doesn't mean it didn't happen. It's just that when something doesn't go the way that I hoped it would go, I just kind of try to figure out a plan B or another way around it or a different way to do it and try to figure it out. Maybe throughout the podcast I'll go, "Oh, I remember this one time it was a colossal failure," but I really truly believe that I fail at things all the time. I think I'm okay with being a risk taker and trying new things, and they sometimes work and they sometimes don't. And I just kind of move on and try to figure out my next step and what's needed next after that.
Thanks for sharing that. Let's go back now, testing my memory. So I think when I first met you must have been when you were the drill coach at Bonneville, and so you were in the Drill Coaches Association. I met you from drill proposals at the UHSAA, and so let's talk about how that drill then became, well, then led to your, I assume, led to the opening at the UHSAA, and you were obviously an assistant director there for years. And so talk about that. Talk about how that happened. And then we'll get more into your UHSAA.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my last year at Bonneville was 2008, after, like I said, just really a dream scenario at that school. Wonderful girls and parents, administration and support. Truly one of some of the best years I've had in education. Just absolutely loved it. But in 2008, when we moved to St. George, I had finished my master's. I taught 1 year down here in 7th grade. And then after that, I was able to get into administration. My role in administration at that time, I think was, for me at that time, was better suited to what I think that I'm pretty good at, which is curriculum and instruction. But then the AD position at Desert Hills opened up, and I ended up going to Desert Hills as the AD. Which I was interested in. I was very interested in being an AD as well. After working with the association closely in my role with the UDDA presidency, and just kind of seeing how, I don't want to say behind the scenes, but kind of behind the scenes, how things worked. I just wanted to have more of a seat at the table and a role in that capacity. So when I became the AD, I think about a year in, the opportunity to be a part of ADEC and the UIAAA presented itself. And I, again, wanted to know what it was like to be a person at that table, have a seat at that table. So got involved in ADEC through that. And then, we meet once a month. And so I'm up at UHSAA office once a month, and I see how that office works closely together, and how one thing, leads to this level, to this level, to this level. And I just became more interested in the process. So when that position became available, when Becky Anderson left, I decided to apply and give it a shot, and ended up getting the job, and then having to decide if I wanted to leave beloved sunny St. George and move to Salt Lake. So, and I did.
And what year was that?
That was 2014, I believe. I'm kind of terrible at dates.
So
14.
let's then talk. So it helped me with the events. So you took the job. I think your husband, Blaine, famous football coach, may have taken a job at Riverton or at Murray or at both. So at least part of the time you were up here, he was up here with you, but part of the time he was coaching Dixie at St. George. And so talk about how that worked, and then talk about what it's like being married to a famous football coach in Utah.
Famous, that's funny. Well, what was supposed to happen was I take this job. And then our daughter had her senior year still to go. So we didn't think that she would mind moving her senior year. I don't really know why we thought that, because not a lot of kids are excited about moving their senior year, but we just thought she would, be excited for a change. And she was not, and she wanted to finish her senior year at Desert Hills and continue her position on the drill team. She was on the drill team there, and we wanted to support her in that and not disrupt her as much as possible. So we made the decision that Blaine would coach at Dixie for one more year through her senior year. So we were a split household for a year, what was supposed to be only 1 year. And then they were supposed to follow me up to Salt Lake. Well, that didn't happen. She ended up going to Utah State for school instead of UVU, which is kind of what we thought would happen. But she ended up choosing Utah State, which is wonderful. We're so proud of her. And then he got an opportunity to coach at what was then called Dixie State, and we didn't want him to not have that opportunity. So he stayed an additional year in St. George with our daughter in Logan. Other kids were in Ogden, and I was in Salt Lake. So we were all over the state. And then after some time with Dixie State, we ended up saying we need to be back together. Like, being all over the state is it's too hard. And we didn't want to live that way anymore.
Absolutely.
So he got a job with Murray, and he coached a season at Murray, and then the Riverton position opened, and he really wanted the opportunity to be back in 6A, or what, he used to be a 5A school when he was at Fremont.
Right.
So now 6A school, and loved Murray and absolutely loved Riverton as well. So we were able to get back under one roof for a couple of years. Then I eventually decided I missed school. I missed the craziness of school. I missed working with teachers. I missed kids, seeing kids all the time. And so we made the tough decision again for me to try to get back into St. George. So then he ended up staying at Riverton, and me moving back down here to get back into Washington County. So that lasted for a year. And then magically his old job at Dixie just opened up, and he was able to kind of step back into what he left. And so it all in the end worked out, but it seemed like 4 really long years, bad timing, but it all worked out.
Yeah, so I was going to say, after 4 or 5 years of chaos, so now you're both back in St. George. And so I think you and I spoke before we began the recording. So you've been a principal at 3 of the high schools in Washington County, and an assistant principal at others.
Yes, so
Explain
I
that.
was an assistant at Hurricane years ago, Hurricane High School, and then Desert Hills. And I'm not even a year into Crimson Cliffs. I've been at Snow Canyon for the last 4 years, and then here at Crimson Cliffs since April 1st of last year.
And so is that hard to get to know the community, get so many kids, so many staff, and then you changed from Hurricane to Snow Canyon, you were at Desert Hills, now you're at Crimson Cliffs?
It is a challenge, but it's also exciting in the sense that I feel like I have friends and familiar faces everywhere I go. And so that's really awesome to be able to go from Hurricane to Snow Canyon and know that I'm going to run into people that I adore and loved working with, and know them, know about some of their families and their working situations and stuff like that. So I really look at it as a blessing. Of course, it's a challenge. I'm somebody who wishes that I could, as I get older, names aren't coming to me as quickly as they used to. So I wish everywhere I went, I could just learn every student's name, just quickly enough that I could, as they walk in the door, greet them by their name. But I work really hard at that. I want to get to know as many kids as possible. So that's probably the greatest challenge, just because there's 1,400 of them and one of me. So that's probably been the greatest challenge, but the biggest reward is just being surrounded by awesome people. Every school I've been to have just absolutely worked with the best. So I love this district, and I'm just grateful for people who believe in me, that they feel like they can, put me in a situation to start another project or work with a different group of people, and that they believe that I'll function well in whatever environment. So I'm just extremely grateful.
Excellent. Let me ask you this, because I can remember, because I'm a little bit older than you. I can remember when I can remember when Pineview was new. And then I remember when Snow Canyon was a new school down there. Obviously, Desert Hills, which you were at Snow Canyon, now Crimson. What does it look like with St. George growing so much? Is there another high school in another 3 or 4 years, or do we not know? Or talk about what that's like in such a growing district.
It has exploded, to use that word. I'm in an area right now. I don't live in this cone site anymore, but I used to. And what was once familiar is not so familiar anymore, just because of so many houses and businesses and schools that have gone up in this area. But I think there's a lot of opportunity and growth. And, I feel like our district has embraced the growth the best way that it can. We have a new school called Career Tech High School, and Career Tech High School doesn't have any activities, or sports, but they do have students. I think their enrollment at max is about 850. I don't think they're quite at 850 yet, but that will alleviate some of the pressure on all of us high schools as well. So I don't think there's a plan in the next 3 or 4 years, maybe more in maybe about 8 to 10. I'm totally not speaking for the district because I don't really know
Okay.
that, but I think with CT High School, that's alleviated some of the pressure on our schools. Plus, they've done some boundary shifts in the last year, the last couple months, really, for the future. So hopefully that will even us out a little bit. But it is still fast growing, still lots of building happening.
Talk to our audience about what it's like to be a successful principal in such a booming area. I mean, we mentioned it a little bit before, but go into a little bit more detail. Obviously, being a principal is tough anyway, and you seem to have done an incredible job. So talk about that.
Oh boy, I don't know how successful I've been, but I just I think being any principal, the number one is to just surround yourself with great people and rely on your team. And I feel like everywhere I've been, I've just had really great people around me and been so supportive and just ultimate professionals. So again, I'm just love the teams that I've been able to work with. I'm a very collaborative person. I thrive on being able to bounce ideas off of other people and learn so much from other people's perspectives. So I think the measure of any success is how much you're willing to learn and grow. And I'm always willing to learn and grow. I love learning. And so I guess I'm in the right business, but I don't ever think I have it all figured out ever. I'm sure there's a better way. And if someone has it, then I'm all about doing it.
Some great insight. Thank you for sharing. Let me ask you, so it goes back probably 14, 15 years since you first were the AD at Desert Hills. So talk about athletic administration, how it's changed or how it's the same since you first had that job. And of course, now you're the principal, so you have an AD working for you.
Yeah, so I've seen the job of AD change, I would say, in a lot of different ways. Always, to me, the AD has had a very complicated, and I want to use the word heavy, meaning like it's a huge responsibility. but I've always, I mean, May Mia was my AD at Bonneville, and she was phenomenal. Like, she made it look easy. She was so great. And, you know, I think of ADs when I worked at the association, one of my greatest rewards was getting to know administrators and ADs and coaches from all over the state. That was my favorite part of the job, is just meeting people from the top of the state to the bottom of the state. It was just so awesome. But hearing the challenges over the years, some things never change, you know, kids getting cut from sports and angry parents and, you know,
Right.
those things never change. I think some things that have changed that and kind of made that become brutal is social media and, you know, just the reporting of whatever you want to say and let it be out there, and kind of blasting schools over stuff like that. It's been kind of disheartening. I think in some ways, it was a very, very, very physical job, and it could still be for some ADs out there, meaning you're marking grass fields, you know, you're chalking everything. And in some ways it's very administrative heavy, and in some ways it's both. Kind of depends on your school and your district and how they do it. I just know that, you know, when I was at Desert Hills, my role was, the expectation was to be part-time AD, part-time assistant principal. And being an athletic director is very much a full-time job, and then some. And then some.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I was much help in the assistant principal department, because really athletics is kind of it is all consuming. And these ADs now, I'll just say, although they may not love, you know, doing activate and register my coach and all that stuff, I think back to ADNet and what a nightmare that was, and the mountains of actual physical paper packets we had. I just think
Right.
about how much everything has evolved and how grateful I am for technology, for Huddle. I used to drive with my husband. My weekends were spent in the fall to go exchange film on VHS tapes and then DVD. And so the ease that you can like push a button on Huddle is a game changer for so many people. And so there's been a lot of evolution that's just been really cool. But there are some things where the challenges just become, I think, overwhelming. And I hope that we can keep it in perspective. If anything that 2020 taught me anyway, is that we're not guaranteed that all this is going to happen tomorrow. And what a disheartening world it was to not see our kids do what they love to do and to support them and cheer them on. And so I just wish people would kind of reflect back on that time a little more and just think about, you know, supporting their kids and what their kids love to do. And, you know, if their kids' life takes them in a different direction, great. How do you support them in that and be positive about it? Because our ADs are underappreciated. They're working their guts out for these kids and for these coaches, and definitely not always hearing about how wonderful they are.
Well said. You talked about that when COVID came in 2020. Now, by the time this airs, it'll be a little bit over 5 years. But I remember it was this weekend, the weekend we're taping this. I was down there with my grandson Noah, who was a junior at Corner at the time, and it was well, you were at Snow Canyon at the time, huge
I
track
was
meets
not at
every
Snow
year.
Canyon yet. I was at Desert Hills Middle, but you were going to be
Right,
at Snow Canyon's always the first track meet. So you would have
right.
been going to the Snow Canyon
Oh,
track meet.
there was thousands. There was thousands of athletes and more than thousands of spectators, mom and dad, grandpa like me. There was talk about what's going to happen. I just remember they were getting times in. It was a rainy, at least part of the day on Friday and then Saturday. And my goodness, Monday morning shows up and boy, school's done. We're doing online. The spring season's canceled. These kids are out of luck no matter what you're doing. And that's, that was a crazy time.
Yeah,
And
it
it,
was Again, I was at a middle school during that year, but that I was making the transition to Snow Canyon High School during that time, and just, you know, not being able to see those kids do what they love to do for that spring season. We were very fortunate, really, in hindsight, that, you know, Utah was pretty much back to work in the fall, even though that brought its own challenges for the next year.
Right.
But just everything canceled, you know, that was really tough. And I just, you know, I just reflect back on that. And when I'm at a game, as much as, you know, this parent might be angry about this, or this coach is, you know, yelling at this official, I'm just grateful that the kids have the opportunity to be there, because it really isn't lost on me that it wasn't too long ago where we didn't have the opportunity, and that wasn't fun.
Right. Kim, what's one common myth about athletic administration that you would like to debunk to the general public?
Well, I'll start with this. It's not just for males.
Right.
I would love to see some more diversity in this role. I think this role comes with, you know, what's the word I'm trying to think of? I think there may be some notion that, you know, you have to be a former football coach or basketball coach, meaning men's, boys basketball, football, and, you know, wrestling. And if you can understand them, you can do this job. I can tell you that I did not understand all of the sports at all when I started this job, or started in as an AD. What I did understand, though, was the process of following policy, getting a team set up through UHSAA policies and rules. I did understand, you know, that I needed to know my sport, and that when I was an AD, that's what I encouraged and expected of my coaches, was to know and understand the rules and policies that govern their sports. And I'm organized. I could get everything organized. There are lots of things that I had to do firsts of and learn more about. You know, I knew a little bit about wrestling because my brother wrestled in high school, but I ran a wrestling tournament probably 2 years into being an AD. And I mean, like a divisional one, like one that, you know, we had a lot of teams and a lot of weight in that. And I remember thinking, what have I got myself into? I don't know anything about wrestling. Really, again, it was being surrounded by great, exceptional people who knew what to do, and just kind of letting them guide me and teach me more about what to do for their sport. Listening to coaches, officials, and, you know, administrators, other ADs, just learning everything I could from everybody who would let me learn from them, is really what this job is all about. So you don't have to know all the rules of every sport. You'll learn that. So I wish more people, I wish that would be a job where that would represent really truly the diversity in sports.
Well said. What's the favorite part of your job, Kim?
My favorite part is, I mean, this is just going to be so cliche, but it really is kids. I love welcoming kids in the morning to school. I love having conversations with them. I love getting to know them, whether they're in trouble or not in trouble. A lot of people have the assumption that you only come to the principal's office when you're in trouble, but
Yeah.
that's not true. That's not true. I love seeing kids set goals and meet them. I love to see kids who didn't think that they would, you know, do this, whatever it is, and then end up doing it and liking it. I absolutely love working with teachers and helping them be successful. I think teachers are absolute gold to be doing the jobs that they're doing these days. And again, underpaid, underappreciated. Just so grateful that they show up day in and day out and give it 110% every time. I absolutely am so grateful for unified sports. That's really been one of my favorite activities throughout the whole year is watching our unified athletes participate. So just so grateful to have that a part of my life and to be a part of that. I don't know, Hutch, I just named a bunch of stuff.
Well,
So
that's great. That says it all. That's very well said. Let's finish with a couple of questions. The first being, I need two suggestions from Kim for a brand new AD, and this person would need to follow Kim's suggestions in order to become a successful AD. What would your two suggestions be?
um, to a new AD, my two suggestions would be to set some boundaries. I had to learn that the hard way because everybody has an emergency at all times of the day. So, and a lot of times their emergency at 11 o'clock at night is going to be the same emergency at 8 o'clock the next morning or even 7 o'clock the next morning. So just to set some boundaries that you need to have some time to yourself to regroup, to be with your friends, your family, to do things that you enjoy doing. Because again, we're talking about what 30 plus programs in a school
Right.
that an AD is over. So to say that this is a 40-hour a week job is just ridiculous. It's way more than that. So you got to have time for yourself and set those boundaries. Also, I would say elicit a really good group of people that you can rely on to help you, from fellow ADs that you can always ask questions to, people that you trust, that know the rules, and just be able to feel comfortable reaching out to to those people to help with any questions or concerns or guidance. Nobody should have to feel like they're in this job alone. It's such a great network of people who do this job, and just get to know them and rely on them to get you through. Otherwise, I don't know how anybody would make it in isolation. It's too complex of a position to try and do in isolation.
Great suggestions. Thanks so much for sharing. We'll get out of here on this question. Kim, what question should I have asked you that I failed to ask you?
I don't think that you failed to ask me anything, actually. Um, you did ask me that I failed to answer was about my famous football coach husband, which made me laugh. The word
He
famous.
is famous.
I don't know that that's the word, but when I talk about a support system, that's another strong a strong point is to have that support system. And I have that with a wonderful husband, and we've been at different schools for many, 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 many years of our time in education, which is absolutely great because he always says I can't be the boss of him everywhere. So, but I would just say, we had a belief that he would do the best in his job and I would do the best at my job. And that was the expectation we also had of each other, is to be the absolute best in what we do. And then, at the end of the day, we just love each other and have that support at home. So again, I just am so grateful for the support all around from people I've worked with and support of my family. So,
Well, then let me ask you one more question that was not on the list. Having coached for years myself, having a daughter who's married to a head football coach, I maybe give a shout out to Blaine for, I think people, maybe some people just think that successful football coaching just comes, and he's been successful everywhere he goes. But talk about that and talk about the time commitment it takes to be a successful football coach in this state in this day and age.
well, just knowing, I don't obviously, I don't know, Eric too well, but I know him
Right.
well enough to know that he's running a wonderful program. And then that tells me that football is 12 months out of the year for him. And that's basically what our life has been like. Football for Blaine has been a head coach for 34 years, just retired, but a part of football coaching for 41 years, his whole teaching career. And that meant football for 12 months out of the year. So, he used to say, I don't hunt, I don't fish, I don't golf, I coach football. And that was true. That's what he did. But he now golfs. So so he can add golfing to his list too. But that's been I guess that's, when I said earlier about an AD setting boundaries, I guess that's kind of been something newer for me to think about as well, is setting boundaries, just to take some time to pay attention more to my family, because, that was what I did. I worked 24/7, that's what I did. And it's worked for us because we've supported each other through that, but that doesn't always work for everybody. But it's also not completely and totally, healthy for everybody either. Finding that balance of being able to enjoy time with your family and enjoy time with friends and doing things you'd like to do is, just becoming more out there, more talked about, more of a thought in people's minds, where that really wasn't talked about 20 years ago. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. He's had some great experiences, great parents that were very supportive, great administration. And, from my perspective as a coach's wife, just being able to have that support for him meant the world to me and to him. And just, some of those boys, we just absolutely, well, all of the boys we love and adore. And, we're like kids to us, and the same for the girls that I coach. Just great role models for our kids. The girls I coached were great role models for my daughter. Wonderful humans now, intelligent, successful, great in their own lives, doing wonderful and productive, awesome things. So just being a part of athletics has kind of been the center of our lives, and we've loved it.
Well, that's great. And that perspective about balancing your life is really great advice. And on that note, that would wrap it up for this edition of the UIAAA Connection. Again, today, our special guest has been Kim Monkres, the principal at Crimson Cliffs High School in St. George, Utah. Kim, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me, Hutch. It was good to sit and talk with you.
For our listeners, we hope you tune in again next week for another edition of the UIAAA Connection.